Howdy, howdy, listeners. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Critical Thinking Nerd podcast. This is an emergency episode because this is not a rumor and it is not just something people are arguing about online. It is in a real U.S. defense bill. In the House version of the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, there is a section called the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. And the bill summary says it would require the Pentagon to appoint someone to coordinate U.S.-Israel cooperation in defense technology testing, integration, and industrial work. I just saw this in a group chat this weekend and wanted to share this with you as soon as I could wrap my head around what this means. Let me put this in plain English. This means Congress, U.S. Congress, is not just talking about sending aid or selling weapons to an ally. It is talking about building a system that could tie parts of the U.S. military and defense industry more closely to Israel over time. Responsible Statecraft says this could include joint weapons development, shared technology projects, co-production, closer cyber cooperation, and even quote-unquote network integration and quote-unquote data fusion, which suggests deeper technical sharing between the two countries. This is why this is serious. A country does not only lose control of itself by being invaded or conquered. Sometimes it loses control slowly by letting another country become deeply built into its military systems, defense planning, technology, and political decision-making. That is the real fear here. Not that America disappears overnight, but that its independence becomes weaker in practice while everything still looks normal on the surface. And that matters because once these kinds of relationships are built into contracts, factories, supply chains, research programs, and military planning, they become very hard to undo. Even if the public changes its mind later, the system that can already be locked in. That is how power works. It is often quiet, technical, and hidden behind boring language. So when people hear the phrase, quote, executive agent to synchronize cooperation, unquote, their eyes may glaze over. But what that can mean in plain English is this. The U.S. government may be creating a formal mechanism to make U.S. military tech cooperation and even U.S. military force operations with Israel deeper, broader, and more permanent. And if that keeps growing, it raises a basic question. Is the U.S. government acting fully in the interests of the American people? Or is it becoming more tied to the priorities of a foreign state? That is the sovereignty issue. Sovereignty simply means a country governs itself. It means its leaders make decisions for that country's people, not because they are locked into outside interests they can no longer control. Section 224 does not erase U.S. sovereignty on paper, but critics argue it could push the country further toward a situation where independence becomes more symbolic than real in military and foreign policy matters. And let me be careful here because accuracy matters. I am not saying every extreme claim people make online is automatically true. I am not saying the United States has literally stopped existing as a sovereign country. I am saying this bill points in a direction that should alarm any citizen who cares about self-government. When Congress creates new ways to integrate military technology industrial production, and strategic systems with a foreign country, that is not a small issue. That is a major national issue. There is another reason people react strongly to this kind of story. In the United States, trust in powerful institutions is already badly damaged. The church community in the 1970s documented CIA abuses and found that the agency had violated constitutional rights because proper checks and balances were not applied. That history of abuses explains why many Americans do not trust government secrecy, especially when national security is involved. So if people sound angry, that anger is not coming from nowhere. Many Americans already believe the U.S. government is too influenced by powerful foreign interests, too secretive, and too willing to drag the country into foreign conflicts that ordinary citizens never truly chose. Section 224 hits that nerve directly because it looks to critics like another step toward making a foreign relationship more deeply built into the structure of American defense policy. And if you are listening outside the United States, here is why this matters globally. When the U.S. military becomes more tied to another country's military technology and strategic priorities, and even personnel force operations, that does not only affect Americans. It can affect regional wars, arms flows, diplomacy, and global stability. Responsible Statecraft argues that Section 224 could create a deeper and less transparent military relationship at a time when public concern is already rising over U.S. policy in the Middle East. So the warning here is simple. This is not just about one bill section with a long title. It is about whether a country can slowly give away real independence without ever admitting that is what it is doing. It is about whether the public is being kept in the dark while long-term military ties are expanded in ways that may be hard to reverse later. That is why I am treating this as an emergency, because the danger is not always loud. Sometimes the danger shows up in bureaucratic language that most people never read. Sometimes it shows up in a sentence that sounds harmless until you realize it could reshape how a nation makes decisions for years to come. And this is one of those moments. If the United States keeps moving from supporting allies to structurally integrating with them in defense technology, production, and strategic systems, then over time its sovereignty can become thinner, weaker, and more performative than real. That is why this deserves attention now, not after the system is already built. This has been an emergency news report for truth, transparency, and fairness. If you found this episode meaningful, please continue to listen to my next episode as I dive deeper and research further to share my knowledge with you. Thank you.